In a quiet corner of Earth, two very different worlds are about to meet. She came from the stars, Soraya, an alien diplomat from a powerful empire, proud and graceful. He was just a normal human. Daniel, kind-hearted, funny, and a little nervous. Their first meeting, not in a war room, not in a spaceship, but at a simple dinner table in a small Earth cafe. Everything was going well, until the waiter brought the bill. Daniel smiled and said, "Let's split it." Soraya paused, her eyes narrowed. She leaned forward and whispered, "You expect me to pay too? Where I come from, real males always provide food." And just like that, dinner turned into a cultural storm. Soraya stepped out of the hover transport and looked around. Earth's sky was lighter than she expected. The wind felt soft against her skin, and the air carried many scent spices, flowers, food, even smoke. Everything was new to her. Daniel stood waiting outside the small restaurant. He saw her and waved with a smile that looked both excited and unsure. Soraya walked toward him with grace. Her long silver dress moved gently with each step. "You must be Soraya," Daniel said, offering his hand. She looked at it for a moment, then shook it slowly. "Yes, you are Daniel, my cultural host." "Right. Welcome to Earth," he said. "You must be hungry." "I am curious," she replied. They walked inside. The restaurant was simple, with wooden chairs and soft lights. A few humans looked at her with wide eyes, but no one said anything. Soraya took in everything, the clinking of glasses, the low music, the smiles between couples, and the smell of grilled food. Daniel pulled out a chair for her. She raised an eyebrow but sat. "Is that a gesture of status?" she asked. Daniel laughed, just trying to be polite. "I see," she said, scanning the menu with her translator lens. "Earth food has many names." "Yeah, it can be confusing. Want me to help you choose?" She nodded. "Select something that reflects your culture." Daniel ordered 2 dishes. While they waited, they talked. He asked about her planet Valeria. She told him about the glowing oceans, the twin moons, and the way her people respected tradition. In Valerian society, males earned honor by providing food was one of the oldest customs. Daniel listened carefully. "That's interesting. On Earth, things are a bit more equal now." She tilted her head. "Equal how?" "Like, sometimes the man pays, sometimes the woman pays, and sometimes we just split it." She blinked slowly. "Split it." Before he could explain more, their food arrived. Daniel showed her how to use the fork. She picked it up quickly and tried the first bite. Her eyes widened. "This is pleasant," she said. "Warm, rich. It reminds me of home a little." Daniel smiled. "Glad you like it." As they ate, the conversation grew easier. Soraya laughed quietly at one of his jokes. Daniel felt more relaxed. Maybe this cultural dinner would be easier than expected. After they finished eating, the waiter came and placed the bill on the table. Daniel reached for his pocket. "All right, let's split it." Soraya looked at him. Her smile faded. She stared at the piece of paper between them. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "What did you say?" Daniel looked confused. "Let's split it, like you pay for your food and I pay for mine." Her eyes narrowed. "You brought me here as your guest, and now you expect me to pay too." He chuckled awkwardly. "Well, yeah, that's normal here. It's just how we do things." She leaned forward. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Where I come from, a male who invites a female to share food is expected to provide it. It is a sign of respect, a sign of honor." Daniel blinked. "I didn't mean to offend you." Soraya looked away for a moment, then back at him. "You have not offended me, Daniel. You have confused me." He hesitated, then pulled out his card and paid the full bill. "No confusion. Tonight's on me." She nodded slowly. "Thank you." Outside, the wind had picked up. Soraya looked at the night sky. "I studied many Earth customs," she said, "but I did not expect this one." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "I guess there's still a lot for us to learn about each other." She looked at him again. "Perhaps, but I wonder if our values are too different." Daniel didn't know what to say. For a moment, they stood there in silence. Her eyes were deep and calm, but something flickered behind them. Thought, doubt, curiosity. A small beep came from the bracelet on her wrist. She touched it and listened. Her face grew serious. She nodded once, then looked at Daniel. "I must return to my ship. There is a message I must answer." He nodded. "Okay. Will I see you again?" Soraya looked at him for a long second. "We will see." Then she turned and walked away, her steps quiet but firm. Daniel stood there, watching her go, wondering how something as small as a dinner could feel like the start of something much bigger. Behind Soraya's calm expression, her mind was racing. She had never met someone like him, and her mission might be more complicated than she thought. Soraya sat in her ship's observation room, gazing through the large glass wall at Earth's moon. It floated quietly in the sky, cold and silver, surrounded by the blackness of space. Behind her, soft lights glowed across the room, and distant hums from the ship's systems gave the space a calm rhythm. Her communicator beeped softly. A voice came through clear, formal, and direct. "Soraya, you have been selected to continue the human observation assignment. Our council requests deeper understanding of their bonding customs. Report any behavior that may affect the outcome of long-term relations." She nodded silently. Understood. After the call ended, Soraya stayed quiet. Her thoughts circled around the evening's dinner. She had studied many Earth behaviors before arriving. She had read their documents, watched their videos, even practiced speaking their languages, but nothing had prepared her for the strange moment when her host expected her to pay for her meal. It wasn't about the money. Valerian currency did not even work here. It was about what it meant. On her world, food was deeply symbolic. Providing a meal was one of the first signs of loyalty, care, or even courtship. It was an honor, and on Earth, it was just a transaction. So didn't understand it. Yet, she didn't feel angry, only curious. The next morning, she walked quietly through one of Earth's large city parks. Her translator device helped her read signs and follow directions. She looked around, observing how humans greeted one another. Some hugged, some smiled, some just nodded and kept walking. No two seemed exactly the same. Then, she saw Daniel again. He was sitting on a bench near a small lake, feeding pieces of bread to a group of birds. His jacket was slightly too big for him, and his hair was messy from the wind. When he noticed her, he stood up quickly, brushing crumbs from his hands. "Soraya," he said, a little out of breath, "I didn't expect to see you today." "I was nearby," she replied, "and I decided to walk. This place is peaceful." He smiled. "It is. I come here when I need to think." She sat beside him. For a moment, neither spoke. "You looked upset last night," Daniel finally said. Soraya answered slowly, not upset, surprised. "Where I come from, a male offering food carries meaning. It shows respect, strength, kindness. It is a part of our culture." Daniel nodded. "I get it now. I didn't mean to be rude. On Earth, it's just, we try to keep things equal, fair. We split bills so no one feels forced." She looked at the birds. "Fairness is important, but sometimes small actions say big things." They sat in silence again, watching the water ripple. Daniel pointed across the lake. "That woman over there, she runs a small food stall. Every day, she gives free meals to anyone who can't afford them." Soraya turned her head. "She does not receive payment. No, just thanks. She says feeding people is the one thing that always makes her feel human." Soraya didn't reply right away. She watched the woman smile and hand a bowl of soup to an old man. Then she said, "Perhaps your people do understand the meaning of giving, just in different ways." Daniel laughed softly. "Yeah, we're not so simple." She looked at him. "You are more complex than I expected, more layered." "Thanks, I think." She stood up slowly. "I must return now, but I wish to meet again. I want to learn more. Not from reports or screens, but from you." Daniel smiled and nodded. "I'd like that too." As Soraya walked back toward her ship, she opened a private note on her personal log and wrote quietly, "Human male shows kindness, provides in ways not expected. Observation will continue." That night, she sat by her window again, watching the moon. But this time, her expression was different. Less cold, less curious, a little more thoughtful. And somewhere deep inside, a question had started growing in her heart. What does it really mean to provide? The city woke slowly under the soft morning light. Steam rose from small street stalls. People hurried across sidewalks with cups of hot drinks, while children laughed on their way to school. The sounds were different from Valeria, less organized, more alive. Soraya moved quietly through the streets, wearing Earth clothes, now simple jeans and a jacket. Her silver hair was tied back, and her translator device was hidden inside her collar. Few people noticed her. She liked it that way. She wasn't just here for political meetings anymore. She was observing someone, carefully, closely. His name was Daniel. From a distance, she watched as he entered a small bakery and helped an old woman carry her bag to a nearby bench. Then he bought her a cup of tea and sat with her for a few minutes, just listening as she spoke. Soraya couldn't hear the words, but she saw the smile on the woman's face. Later, Daniel walked to a small building where he worked. It wasn't a grand job. He repaired old machines and electronics. The place was dusty, but his hands moved with care. People came in, frustrated and tired. They left smiling and thankful. Noted everything. In her mind, she compared what she saw with what she had been taught. On Valeria, males were tested by how much they could provide food, shelter, safety. They showed strength in public and spoke little of emotion. Feelings were private, almost hidden. But here, Daniel provided something else: kindness, time, attention. In the evening, she followed him to a shelter where he volunteered once a week. He served food, not as a duty, but as something he clearly wanted to do. He joked with the children, helped clean the tables, and sat with a boy who seemed alone. They played a simple card game. Daniel let the boy win. Soraya stood by the wall, unnoticed, her eyes focused. This didn't match anything from her studies. It wasn't weakness. It wasn't power either. It was something different. Back in her ship, she recorded her thoughts. Subject shows unusual patterns of care. He does not lead with power or force, yet he creates calm, comfort, and happiness around him. This may be another form of providing. She paused, then added, this may be better. The next day, she didn't observe from far. She joined him. Daniel was surprised when she appeared outside the workshop. You again? He smiled. Not spying on me, I hope. She tilted her head slightly. I came to see your world, not just from a window. Well, come on in. Then, it's not much, but it's mine. She followed him inside. Tools hung on the walls, wires stretched across the tables, and a small radio played soft music. It smelled like metal and old paper, but also like something warm and lived in. He gave her a seat and handed her a mug of tea. Careful, it's hot. She took a sip and nodded. I like this one. He looked curious. So, how's Earth treating you? Soraya looked around before answering. It's loud, disorganized, and the sky changes color too fast. But the people, they are full of surprise. Daniel laughed. That's a fair review. She watched him fix a broken radio, his fingers moving with skill. Then, without looking up, he asked, did I really upset you that night? She was quiet for a moment. I was not angry. I was confused. But now, I think I'm beginning to understand that there is more than one way to give. He looked up, surprised by her words. Yeah, I guess that's true. As she stood to leave, she looked at him one more time. Thank you for showing me your way. When she returned to her ship, a message was waiting for her. It was from her superior officer on Valeria. Reminder, your task is observation only. Do not form personal attachments. Stay focused. Cultural exchange must remain professional. She stared at the screen for a long time, then turned it off. Outside her window, Earth's sky turned orange as the sun set. She whispered to herself, but what if personal attachment is part of understanding? She didn't know the answer yet, but she knew one thing: she wanted to see him again, and not for the mission, for herself. The sky was quiet that morning, painted in soft blues and gentle whites. Soraya stood in front of a small cafe, holding a folded note in her hand. It wasn't a message from her ship, not a report, not a reminder from Valeria. It was something Daniel had written and handed to her the day before, simple, direct, with just one sentence. Meet me here tomorrow. I'll bring the coffee, you bring the questions. She smiled a little as she read it again. Inside the cafe, Daniel sat at a corner table, waving when he saw her walk in. He had already ordered 2 cups, sat on the table, steam rising from both. You came, he said. You invited, she replied, sitting down. Daniel leaned back in his chair. So, ready for your questions? Soraya looked at him thoughtfully. Actually, I think I would like to start with an answer. He raised an eyebrow. Go on. I have been watching you, she said, without hesitation. Daniel blinked. Watching me? Yes, not in secret. As part of my mission, she added quickly, to learn how your kind lives, how you connect, how you give. He laughed softly. You make it sound like I'm some kind of research project. To my people, you are, she said honestly. But to me, you're becoming something else. Daniel didn't speak right away. He just nodded slowly and sipped his coffee. So, what have you learned? Soraya looked down at her hands. That providing is not always about offering things. Sometimes, it is about showing up, listening, being kind when no one expects it. You do this without even knowing. Daniel smiled. That's just being human, I guess. Then your kind is more generous than I thought, she said. They sat in silence for a few minutes, letting the moments stretch. Then Daniel asked, what about you? What was your life like before coming here? Soraya hesitated. No one on earth had asked her that yet. She took a slow breath and answered, my parents are part of the High Council. I was trained to lead from a very young age. Discipline, honor, order, these are words I've known all my life, but I don't know if I ever really felt them. Daniel watched her closely. I was always told what to be, where to go, who to trust. When I was chosen to visit Earth, I was told it was a duty, nothing more. But here, things feel different. Less controlled, more open. Daniel nodded. Sometimes, freedom feels messy, but it's real. Soraya looked at him. Do you ever feel lost in it? He looked out the window. All the time. Then he added, I wasn't always like this. My parents passed when I was young. I had to grow up quickly, take care of my little sister, fix what I could, learn what I didn't know. Soraya's eyes softened. You became the provider. Yeah, not always the best one, he said with a faint smile. But I tried. She reached out slowly, placing her hand over his for a brief moment. He looked down at the touch, surprised but not uncomfortable. Your people have strange ways, she said, but your heart, it is something my world would honor. Daniel looked up, meeting her eyes, and yours is something we'd never forget. Before either of them could say more, a quiet vibration buzzed on Soraya's wrist. Her bracelet flashed a message from her ship. Her expression changed slightly as she read it. Daniel noticed. Everything okay? She nodded slowly, but her voice was less certain. A message from my superiors, they say. Earth officials have expressed concern about our personal meetings. He leaned back. Why? We haven't done anything wrong. Not wrong, she said, but unexpected. She stood from the table. They want to speak with me. Immediately. Daniel stood too. Will I see you again? I don't know, she said quietly. I wish I could answer yes. He looked at her carefully. If this ends here, I want you to know, you've taught me a lot too. She smiled, but it was faint. Then we've both learned something. She turned and walked out of the cafe. The soft bell above the door ringing behind her. Daniel stood alone, holding his empty coffee cup, watching the door slowly swing back into place. Outside, Soraya walked quickly, her thoughts spinning. Time on Earth was changing her. She could feel it, and she wasn't sure if that was something her people would forgive. Inside her ship, she opened the message again. It read, Mission is shifting. Human contact has gone beyond expected limits. Prepare for return. Await further orders. Soraya closed her eyes. And for the first time she didn't know which orders to follow, her people's or her heart. The sky was cloudy when Soraya stepped out of her ship that morning. The wind felt different, cooler, like it was carrying a quiet message. She walked slowly, as if each step meant something. Her orders had been clear. Return to Valeria within 24 Earth hours. Her mission was marked as complete. Her presence was no longer required, but something inside her wasn't ready to say goodbye. She walked toward Daniel's neighborhood without telling him she was coming. She didn't bring her translator lens, her formal coat, or her data tablet. She wore only a light sweater and a soft look on her face. For the first time, she wasn't a diplomat or a recorder of cultures. She was simply a visitor, maybe even a friend. When she arrived, she found him in the small garden behind his building. He was kneeling in the dirt, fixing the small fence that protected his sister's flowers. He looked up and smiled the moment he saw her. I didn't think I'd see you again, he said. I didn't plan to come, Soraya answered softly. But I couldn't leave without seeing you one last time. Daniel stood and wiped his hands. I'm glad you came. There was a pause between them, a soft silence that felt full of unsaid things. Would you like to come upstairs? He asked. She nodded. In his apartment, everything felt warm and simple. A couch with a faded blanket, books stacked beside the window, a small dining table with uneven legs. It was nothing like the smooth silver rooms of her ship, but It felt more human than anything she had studied. "I want to cook for you," Daniel said suddenly. Soraya blinked. "You cook?" "Not well," he smiled. "But I try." I thought about our first dinner, the confusion, the moment it all shifted. "I want to do it right this time." She didn't answer at first. Then slowly, she said, "I'd like that." He moved around the small kitchen, opening cupboards, pulling out ingredients, vegetables, noodles, spices. It was clear he wasn't a chef, but there was care in every motion. Soraya sat on a stool nearby, watching quietly. "This dish," he said, stirring something in a pot. "My mom used to make it when we didn't have much. It's simple, but it always made us feel safe." Soraya tilted her head. "Safety through food, that I understand." He smiled. "Maybe we're not so different after all." As the meal cooked, they talked not about missions or culture, but about little things. The sound of rain on metal rooftops, the way earth trees changed color in autumn, the taste of fresh bread, the strange joy of finding a lost object. When the food was ready, Daniel placed 2 bowls on the table. No menus, no waiters, no bills. Just him, her, and the warmth of something made with effort and thought. Soraya took her first bite and closed her eyes. It was simple, but it carried weight. "It's not perfect," Daniel said. She looked at him. "It doesn't have to be. You provided, you gave, and that means everything to me." He looked away for a moment, his voice quieter. "I wish you didn't have to leave." "I know," she whispered. "So do I." They ate slowly, stretching the moment, as if time would slow down for them. When the meal was finished, Daniel stood and walked to a small drawer. He returned with a folded napkin inside. It was a single silver spoon with a smooth handle. "This was my mum's," he said. "She gave it to me before she passed. Said it always reminded her that sharing food was more than just survival. It was love." Soraya looked at the spoon, then at Daniel. "Are you giving this to me?" He nodded. "Only if you promise to bring it back one day." She smiled, a soft, real smile. "Then I must return." Outside, the clouds began to clear, and a faint orange light filled the sky. Soraya stood at the door, holding the spoon gently in her hand. Daniel walked her to the street. Neither of them said goodbye. The word felt too final. She turned to him one last time. "Next time, I'll bring the meal." He laughed quietly. "Next time, we cook together." She nodded, then walked away, her figure slowly fading into the evening light. Back in her ship, she placed the spoon in a small box and wrote beside it, "Received, not taken." Then, for the first time since she left her home planet, she didn't report anything. She simply sat by the window, holding the warmth of the memory. Asterisk. The stars outside the window moved slowly as Soraya's ship traveled across the space between Earth and Valeria. Inside her cabin, everything was quiet to quiet. The hum of the engines, once a comfort, now felt cold. Her fingers gently touched the small silver spoon resting on her desk. It was still wrapped in the same napkin Daniel had given her. The spoon held no power, no technology, no special symbol. And yet, to her, it meant more than any mission badge or diplomatic medal. A soft chime echoed in the room. A message was coming in. She opened it without speaking. Soraya said, a calm voice from Valaria's High Council. "Your report was received. We are pleased with the cultural exchange. Your return will mark the beginning of our official peace process with Earth. The ceremony has been scheduled in your honor." She stared at the screen. However, the message continued. "We have noted your emotional deviation from protocol. Future assignments will be more structured to prevent such attachments." The message ended. Soraya sat still, her hands folded on her lap. Her gaze drifted back to the spoon. The word attachment stayed in her thoughts. Was it truly a mistake to care? As the ship approached her homeworld, Valeria's twin moons appeared in the window, perfect, glowing, untouched. She should have felt proud, but something felt unfinished. When she stepped out of the ship onto the landing platform, guards saluted her. Her parents were waiting at the edge of the steps, dressed in ceremonial robes. Her mother spoke first. "You did well, Soraya. We read your notes. Earth is less primitive than expected." Her father nodded. "We will use this knowledge wisely." But Soraya didn't respond right away. Her thoughts were still with the warmth of Daniel's kitchen, the laughter during their quiet dinner, and the softness in his voice when he said, "We cooked together." Later, inside her personal quarters, Soraya placed the spoon gently into a small, clear box. Next to it, she wrote one line in her private log. Some things you don't report, some things you carry with you. Days passed, ceremonies were held, speeches were made. Soraya stood on balconies and bowed at formal events. People praised her for the success of her mission. Yet, she felt like only half of her was present. The other half still sat across from Daniel, listening to soft music and sharing stories over tea. One evening, as the sun dipped behind Crystal Mountains, Soraya stood by a small garden near the central city. She looked up at the stars, wondering which one was Earth's sun, wondering what Daniel was doing, if he still had that extra bowl waiting, if he still looked out the window, hoping she might return. A faint sound broke her thoughts, a communication chime from her personal device. She didn't expect any messages. Slowly, she opened it. The screen flickered. A familiar voice came through, soft, human. "Hey, I don't know if this will reach you, but I thought I'd try. I made your dish again today. It didn't come out the same without you here. The spoon you took, it's not just a gift, it's a promise. So, whenever you're ready, I'll still be here, with the stove on." Soraya stared at the screen. Her heart felt heavier and lighter at the same time. The message ended with silence. She turned off the screen, walked back to her room, and looked at the silver spoon once more. The light from the window touched its surface gently. That night, she packed a small bag, just one. No medals, no royal banners, just a set of earth clothes, and the spoon. And somewhere in the great space between two stars, a quiet thought formed. In her mind, perhaps the greatest way to provide this is simply to return.